One of the biggest confusions out there when it comes to selecting tile is how do you select a floor tile, and in this episode we're going to go into details about that. Alright, we've got lots of things to cover here, so let's start off with coefficient of friction. The coefficient of friction that you want to look for is 0.42 at the minimum. So if you have a place that's going to be exposed to more moisture or water, let's say a mud room, you want to think about having a higher coefficient of friction because you're going to have less likely of somebody slipping on your tile. So that's one thing. Next thing is what type of tile you pick, ceramic or porcelain. Let me tell you, when it comes to floors, you want to always stick with a porcelain tile. Why? Because it's more dense. It has been, it can handle more load, so it has a higher breakage strength. We've talked about this in a different video, and I'll put these links up. That's very important to consider. Is pick always a porcelain tile when it comes to floor. The next thing about porcelain tile, though, is whether you go with a glazed tile or a unglazed tile, sometimes considered as a natural tile. Glazed tiles are that shiny tiles that you typically see. So if you're going to go with a glazed tile, you need to consider a few things. First of all, how well polished is that glaze? That's an important factor. A lot of these cheap manufacturers, what they do is they polish the tiles to about 60%, and what happens is that there's a lot of small little microscopic pores that exist within that glaze, and what that does is that over time those like dirt and everything will get into that. You're going to see a discoloration of your tile. It won't happen right away, but you'll see it as time goes on. And what they do actually is that they apply a type of wax at the factory that kind of sits on that and fills some of that holes temporarily, until what happens is that you grout it, and then you start to see this sort of this haze that's you can't remove it how many times you wash it, and then you end up having to remove that haze with a haze remover, and what that does is remove the wax, and then you get, I talked about this in a separate video. I'll put the link up to this and you can get into more detail. But the other factor you need to consider if you're going for a glazed tile is the PEI rating, which is the porcelain enamel rating. There's a whole video about this, so I will again put the link up for this. You guys can take a look at this into more detail. But very quickly, what the PEI rating does, it gives the rating in terms of the scratch resistance for that glaze. So obviously when you're putting tiles on the floor, you want to have a tile that's not going to be prone to scratches over time. So depending on the rating that the manufacturer gives it, that's going to have that level of scratch resistance. So that's one thing. The next one, staying on the topic of scratch resistance, is the Mohs scale, which is the Mohs hardness scale actually. And again, a whole video about this as well. You guys can check it out. But just very quickly, what that does is that gives you the degree in which natural objects within the environment can scratch it. So for instance, things like rocks, nails, and all kinds of things, just normal wear and tear. How likely is it to give it a deep scratch? And this can be for glazed tiles or unglazed tiles. It doesn't really matter. So it's just about a more of a deeper abrasion resistance of the tile. Just to take a side note here, we're going to talk a lot of things here, and I'm kind of giving it in a very quick fashion, but there is a video for every single one of these that goes into more detail, and I would rather you guys look at the ones that is going to apply to you, or maybe things you may know already and may not know. So I was just going to go run through all these, but the purpose of this video is just going to give you an overview of all these things to look for when it comes to selecting a floor tile. Let's move on. Next thing is shade variation. Shade variation is how much variation you tend to see between different types of tiles. So when you go to a showroom and you see a tile on the wall and you're like, oh, that looks amazing, I want that tile, you also have to ask the question, what's the shade variation on this tile? If it has a large shade variation, like let's say it's a V4 for instance, you're going to see many different versions of that tile that's going to be laid down, and you may not want that. You may want more of a uniform look. So that's an important thing to consider as well. Another thing is water absorption. Water absorption is how likely it is that tile is going to absorb water. for a if you're putting tile on a floor, it's going to be a porcelain tile. You want to make sure that that's as 0.5 or less in terms of water absorption, which then designates it as a true porcelain. If you're putting tiles in an environment that you think is going to be exposed to freeze-thaw environment, then you need to make sure that tile is rated for frost. The other thing is that kind of wraps everything all together. You can go through all these things and make sure that they're all checked off. But an important factor also to consider is the installation system that is being applied to it, because given the environment, given the type of foot traffic, given the type of the amount of foot traffic or the load that's going to be going in and out on that tile in terms of weight, the installation system also makes an important factor when it comes to how long that floor is going to last. So if you in a separate video, again, I have all this in more detail, but just very quickly, if the installation system that's applied is rated, that installation system itself is rated at light, but the environment that this tile is going in would be more rated as like a moderate or heavy, then you're going to have failures. That's going to happen. Very quick example, compared a type of load and traffic you're going to see on a car dealership floor versus a bathroom floor. So the same installation system is not going to be applied, and these systems are all defined very clearly by the TTMAC or the TCNA, and these are the governing bodies that basically sets the standards of how tiles should be installed. And so all these things are an important factor when you're selecting a tile and doing any kind of project management on any particular installation. So really great information for designers, architects, or even contractors to really take these things in consideration so that the end user at the end is going to be very satisfied with the work. Thanks for listening. Again, lots of information in this video that went really quickly, but all the links are below, so take a look at what you need to look at. And thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks again for watching this video. You know, my goal is to help all Canadians learn about tile and tile installations so everyone can benefit from all this information that's available to us. So if you like this information, please show your support and hit that subscribe button and the like button, and we'll see you in the next video.